What's up, everyone? I'm Mark, and in a slightly different position, this is several books. So what we're going to do today is a top 5 of the year 2025. I have one book that I'm going to be reviewing, The Royal Family, that is technically part of a trilogy, but we're just going to talk about just that book. And then I've got a tetralogy by a Belgian writer. And I'm going to count that whole tetralogy. It's all available in English, and I think that you would enjoy it if you give it a chance. What we're basically going to do is start out in English. We'll start out with the oldest book and then move up. And then I'm going to touch on French in basically the same fashion. So, the first book that we're going to look at is The Room. And The Room is by Hubert Selby Jr. I read this year for the first time. I did make a Hubert Selby Jr. video. I had read some of him, but not all of him, as I did read all of him for this year. The Room is, in my opinion, a very well done novel. Believe it or not, is somewhat influenced by the tradition of Henry James. We have a character who's in a prison, and we don't know how he got there. And this kind of lack of awareness is very similar to things such as the illness in Wings of a Dove, where we never figure out exactly what the illness means. The other thing about The Room is that it seems very ham-fistedly influenced by Jean Genet and maybe also Antonin Artaud. Jean Genet is referenced specifically in Hubert Selby Jr.'s earlier work, Last Exit to Brooklyn. Otherwise, the aesthetic of cruelty really seems to come out of the French Surrealist movement. And Antonin Artaud was a French Surrealist, and he invented the theater of cruelty. He left the Surrealist movement and kind of went about his own way. He's known mostly for theater and poetry, but basically why I'm bringing him up is that we get this very abstracted theater that often focuses on violence and sexual problems and so forth. So, The Room is basically a novel that takes place entirely within a jail cell. And the nameless narrator, he might be nameless, he might be named Harry. Everybody is named Harry in Hubert Selby Jr. But basically we go through his imaginings of torturing the people who put him in prison. Now, they're not all torture, but there is torture in the book. It might not be what you had in mind if I were to say that there's torture, but believe me, there is real violence in this book. There is uncomfortable sexual stuff, and it's a real one. I rank this as an S-tier book. This is in a close fight with Last Exit to Brooklyn for me for the best Hubert Selby Jr. Last Exit does ultimately win out, but I read that a few years back, and so it doesn't matter for 2025. For 2025, two pieces of gritty American fiction are what I've chosen, and the first of those, The Room, Hubert Selby Jr. Really check it out if you're looking for some gritty literature. The second book from the US that we're going to be looking at is The Royal Family. I'm going to show you the back of my copy of The Royal Family, which is something that I saw another YouTuber do. The front of the book is not... It's not the most shocking photo I've ever seen, but it's not intended for, all audiences. The book in general is really kind of a adult book. The Royal Family is basically about a private eye who has been enlisted by a guy who has an idea to create a whorehouse in Nevada, Las Vegas. What he's going to do is basically claim that the prostitutes who work at the whorehouse for him are actually computer simulations of people and like robots or something of some sort. By the end of the novel, this is seen as kind of ridiculous, but it is part of the book. And what the book really focuses on is tracing how the private investigator sort of falls apart. And what he's been enlisted to do is to seek out a quote-unquote queen of the prostitutes. And he does find the queen eventually. The book is really kind of a very strange love story between the queen and the main character. I worry that when I say it's a love story, you'll think that I'm saying it's a happy-go-lucky affair. There are some things that are described in the book that I think will revolt a lot of people. There are sex acts and there's violence that is absolutely not intended for all audiences. It is a very graphic novel. That said, this is an S-tier book. Now, at the moment, I'm reading Volman's The Rifles, about Canadian rifle expedition and a man named John Franklin. But this so far is my favorite Hubert Selby Jr. Not Hubert Selby Jr., my favorite William T. Volman. The Rifles could hold a note up on that list. And You Bright and Risen Angels is also a fantastic book. So that was his first book. All of his other books that I've seen seem to be somewhat different than that. Not really a whole lot else to say. It's a pretty thick book, as you can see. I think it's about 700 pages. The writing style is very clear and actually fairly simple. And it's funny to me that William T. Volman holds a place as a postmodern writer because I typically associate the postmodern movement in American fiction as being very complicated style sentences and narratives. Most of the characters in the royal family are prostitutes. We see all sorts of just the roughest aspects of life. He's very vivid and accurate, I guess would be a good word for it, or attuned to various drugs. We see slang for a lot of drugs, everything from hard to soft, and we do see some aspects of life that many people probably are happy not to experience. That said, the royal family is moving. It's very interesting. We see everything from homelessness to people jumping trains and everything in between, along with a satirical, as I said, kind of weird sci-fi-ish type element where the guy is claiming that he's going to create a bordel. And yeah, that's that book. So, The Royal Family by William T. Volman is in S. The next book that I'm going to look at is French. I realize that all of these are S's now, so it makes no sense for me to split up everything according to rating. But that next French book is a collection of Simone Weil. This collection is about 1,300 pages. They got like 1275, I think, or 1274, counting the table of contents. So it's like a 2-page table of contents. I had not read Simone Weil in depth until this year. I found Simone Weil to be very interesting after I started reading her in depth. The way I was introduced to Simone Weil was by a post on the internet that recommended reading her if you had read Walter Benjamin and weren't sure who to read next. This does not include the famous work Waiting for God. That's probably Simone Weil's most famous work. According to Milton Hindus, who was a French language scholar and had actually played a role in Celine being published in the U.S. and his distributing his works, popularizing him. Milton Hindus thinks that Waiting for God may actually be the source behind Samuel Beckett's Un Instant Godot, Waiting for Godot, and that the name may reference that. So, what can I say about Simone Weil? Now, based on what YouTube has told me, all of my viewers are probably 30 to 40, or 30 to 50 rather, and probably not super interested in Stoicism, because this is a booktube channel. Stoicism likely isn't shocking people the same way that when somebody who hasn't read a lot of philosophy is suddenly introduced to Stoicism. Simone Weil is basically of the opinion that Christianity and Stoicism are the same thing. And on top of that, she was an anarchist. Based on how she describes organization of people in this book, I think the style of anarchism that she seems to promote would be called syndicalism. Basically, people working in one environment manage their own environment. The workers do everything, and it's a left-wing thing in and of itself. The other thing she does a lot is she really focuses on the biblical Trinity. She really probes that and attempts to understand it. I think for this reason, Weil is sometimes called a mystic. Now, compared to other mystics, I would not rank Weil as, I guess, the most mystical. We're not getting like cosmologies of the universe or anything. She's a Christian. She took it very seriously. Simone Weil is a very interesting philosopher. She died of starvation, self-imposed as a moral standpoint, and starved herself to death. I don't know. One problem with Weil is that it is very important to know her biography. In addition to the written work. The written work kind of works in tandem with the biography. And a collection of like 50 essays such as this doesn't entirely stand on its own as well as certain other philosophic works. That said, it is 50 essays. So you can't expect a book when you're reading a collection of essays. And I don't really have a whole lot else to say about Simone Weil. This was a great book. My copy, like I said, of this is almost 1,300 pages. This is not available in English, this collection. What is available in English, though, I have On the Abolition of All Political Parties, which is published by NYRB. And Waiting for God is also very interesting from what I've heard. I haven't read it. I'm not a Christian. I don't really have strong spiritual practices. But I'm saying that you guys should check out Simone Weil. I would probably start with On the Abolition of All Political Parties. It's published by the NYRB. And it was pretty great. Now, I have two other French language people. They're both roughly contemporary, but one of them is Belgium, from what I know. So we'll go with the French person first, and that's Base Moi by Virginie Despentes. This book is available in English. As you can see, it's a pretty small book. This copy is like 300 pages, but if you can see the text, there is not a huge amount of writing in this book. Base Moi is the story of two French prostitutes who are assaulted, and they basically meet up and they go on a killing spree. The style of writing, believe it or not, kind of reminds me of like a young James Salter. This is a totally different book than anything that James Salter wrote, but if you ever found anything remotely intriguing about James Salter, you'd probably be surprised stylistically how much commonality there is between Base Moi and, say, A Sport and a Pastime. Just the shorter sentences, the clarity is the focus, things like that. That said, of course, that's Salter's mature style. This is Despentes' first work, and she wrote this when she was like 20 or 21, something like that. Despentes was somebody who had worked in sex work. Her novel Cher Connard is fairly recently published in English. I think in the past, maybe it's longer than I thought. It's like in the past year, Cher Connard was published in English. That book in French is pretty good, but Base Moi is singular in Despentes' oeuvre. Not only is it a great book, none of her other books are like this at all. There's no violence on a level of what we see in here. There's nothing like that exactly. We do see some similar themes, but in general, just what I would want to say is this book is good. Now, I understand also that apparently this was made into a movie. Virginie Despentes directed herself, and my reading of reviews on the movie make me sound like I probably am not interested in it. That said, I love the book. It's a different thing for a director to direct a movie with unsimulated sex and write a novel. But Virginie Despentes is a favorite writer of mine, and when choosing a writer to say as one of the top 5 books of the year, my choice was between Mary Gateskill and the Virginie Despentes stuff I read earlier in the year because I was thinking of making a video of her, and I decided to just kind of go from what I had read most recently. I've read all of Despentes' works. Base Moi is probably not the best of them. There are some more ambitious projects that she did, such as the Vernon Subutex trilogy, but Base Moi is definitely an S-tier book. The last writer we're going to look at is a guy I haven't talked about on here, and his name is Jean-Philippe Toussaint. And this is a tetralogy. This is 4 books by him. And I guess what you'd call this is the Marie tetralogy. I think that's the way it's packaged. Marie Madeleine Marguerite de Montel. So that's her name. So MMMM is the name of the trilogy. I'm going to probably be making a full video just on Jean-Philippe Toussaint. I found this list of 100 novels published since 2000, and I think the people who collaborated it were on some forum like 4chan or something. I normally don't put a lot of stock in 4chan. I don't find it particularly hard usually to find things to read because the internet is not the most difficult thing to use, and you got Wikipedia with links to different authors of different movements and so on and so forth. Regardless, that list had listed Fuir as as his work for the best thing he'd ever rewritten, basically, but also his work that would be counted among the top 100 novels of the 20th century or the 21st century up until this point. I bought the book. Actually, I bought all four of the tetralogy, and I promptly sat it on my bookshelf and essentially forgot about it for probably like 2 years. I came back this past year shortly after reading Simone Weil. I had been in the hospital at that time. I'm in good health now, so nothing to worry about, guys. But I wasn't sure what to read, and I knew that Jean-Philippe Toussaint was a photographer. I'm pretty sure he's Belgian, and I hadn't read a lot of stuff from Belgium. I believe, what is her name? There is a writer, Amélie Nothomb, is a French language writer. She writes kind of like chick lit. She's written some good books, so I've read a few of them. But that's my only other Belgium author that I can think of. I didn't care. I didn't care. I came back from the hospital. I wasn't sure what to read. I had this. I figured, you know what? It's been sitting up there forever. I'm looking for something totally different to take my mind off of what's going on. I want to just shock myself into a different state of mind. I am going to read the tetralogy. I read Faire l'amour, or Making Love. These, I believe, are all in English, so I'm not recommending anything here that you can't get. But I read Faire l'amour, and this is a story of a guy carrying around a canister of acid, and he's obsessed with like a fashion designer. Now that's me leaving out a whole lot, but I'm just kind of making you aware of what might be exciting. So think about somebody carrying acid the same way they do in England when there are acid attacks. And he's obsessed with this woman. And they make love in the book, the woman he's obsessed with, and stuff happens. And I'm not really going to say too much more for fear of spoiling. The second book in the tetralogy is Fuir. I believe that would be translated as flight in English. Fuir is to flee or take flight, run away from. What happens in Fuir is the book starts off in Japan. And basically, Fuir is, if I'm remembering right, it's mostly like this guy agreeing to meet the woman, and he's traveling in China, and he's on a train for a lot of that. After that is La Vérité sur Marie, and this is like a lot of fleeing in Europe, and chasing Marie. And then the last book I can't show you the cover of. It's called Nue, N-U-E, or in English it would be Nude. My cover has a naked person on it. The title comes from a fictional dress that the fashion designer has put on a person, and it's really an artistic movement. So it's not it's not the knowing the title of the novel is not going to break your concentration of the book. This is basically a trilogy about a guy who is traveling from Japan through China into Europe, or a tetralogy. The book is written in basically in paragraphs that are sometimes chopped up as if like different sections. and there are chapters in the book as well. The writing is absolutely beautiful. I feel so stupid for having put this book off for so long. I don't know what else to say about it, except that, like I said, I own more of this guy's books. I don't own all of them, but I have like another 6 or 7 of them, maybe 8 of them. I'm gonna probably sit down and read the other books of his that I bought soon and make a video just on him. For what it's worth, there is a French kind of literary movement that is identified as being part of Les Éditions de Minuit. And it's like a 4-person movement. And Jean-Philippe Toussaint, Marie Ndaye, and Jean Econos are the 3 people that I know of the movement. Basically, it's more about the style of paragraphing, the sentence structure, and so forth. But it's a style of fiction that is identified with this publishing house. He's totally worth looking at. If nothing else, you'll be reading a book by somebody from Belgium, and you'll get an idea of what life in Belgium is like. You'll get an idea of what Asia looks like to a Belgian person. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. You are missing out if you don't check out this guy. Alright? Okay, so I've gone through and we've looked at The Room, The Royal Family, a collection of the writing of Simone Weil, Baise-moi by Virginie Despentes, and the MMMM tetralogy by Jean-Philippe Toussaint. I really do hope you guys check out some of those books if you haven't heard of them. I'd be just as happy to make a book only about the MMM tetralogy. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for everything, guys. Several books out.